All right, and shalom, shalom. So, welcome to Oklahoma City King James Bible University. And I'm Deacon Micah. And today, we're moving forth with our series. And this is the Precept Written Communication Academy. And overall, our goal here with this academy is just to show you all how to use these tools. And if you have them, and how to use them to tear down scripture and find all of the precepts that you need to always get the understanding that the Most High intended for us to have, and also at the same time to richly edify you with Bible studies according to precepts. So today, then we're going to be going over Jonah chapter 1, verse 1 and 2, and overall, then we're going to see who Nineveh is talking about. We're going to learn more about what was going on in Nineveh and what the consequences are at stake if we do not come out of Nineveh. Because then it's a very important warning for us all to take heed to. So, it's something that all of us need to know, and this is what we're going to be covering while we are going over this precept written communication instruction. So, right here on the screen, then we have the two verses there, then I already laid them out. And, I have a couple of stuff that I capitalized so that we can hone in on. So, the big focus is it's going to be Nineveh, and it's also going to be the great city. And the reason why these are capitalized is you got to remember, we're not Moses. And Moses, and he spoke to the Most High face to face, than us, and we're going to be learning and understanding doctrine through precepts. So just to back that up with scripture, then I'm going to get ready to pull up the Bible and show you what I'm talking about. So we have Exodus chapter 33, verse 7, which is going to be the first precept. Actually, it's Exodus 33 and 11. So, and the Lord spoke unto Moses face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. And he turned again unto the camp. But his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tabernacle. So, that's the first precept right there. And the Lord spoke unto Moses face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. And the next one that I'm going to always be running when I'm doing a series is going to be Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 10. So we're getting ready to go over there right now. So Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 10. We're going to go down, and here we go right here. So, and there arose not a prophet since in Israel like unto Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. That's the second precept. And then the third one, we'll go to the book of Matthew, and we're going to go to chapter 13, verse 34 and 35. So we're heading over to Matthew 13, and we go down to 34 and 35. So here it is right here. So we know that the Spirit of God spoke to Moses face to face, and there arose not a prophet whom the Lord knew face to face. And this is concerning us right here with verses 34 and 35. So all these things spoke Jesus unto the multitude in parables. So that's us right there. And without a parable spoke he not unto them, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. So Spirit of God, then he's speaking to us in parables. So in order for us to learn doctrine, and we're going to have to be tearing these scriptures down using precepts, because we are not Moses. So that's the whole gist of with the precept written communication tool. You lay down your scriptures and you tie them out to where you can hone in on bits and pieces of it, and you can accurately tear down the scriptures and always extract that doctrine out of it so you can be richly edified. So what we're getting ready to do is now that we have this stuff laid out, we're getting ready to move over to the Preceptor, and we're going to look at what's going on with Jonah chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. So it reads, Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise. So that was one commandment that he received. Go to Nineveh, which is the next commandment that he received. That great city, which that's how it's characterized, and cry against it, which that's another command. And you got a semicolon there. So this is another topic right here. For their wickedness is come up before me. So we know that something is going down. There's a problem with Nineveh. There's wickedness there, and we need to see what the wickedness is so we can correct it. So moving over to the Preceptor, then I already had everything laid out. So I already have who, which Jonah talking to. Next one is what is a great city? What did the scriptures mean by crying against Nineveh and what this wickedness is. So we're getting ready to scroll down to the bottom and pull up the boxes so we can start looking at this. So the first one is the recipients of who Jonah was sent to talk to. So we're looking at Genesis chapter 10, verse 11. So we're getting ready to first start out of the law. Out of that land went forth Asher and builded Nineveh, in the city Rehoboth and Calah. So we know that Asher is the one that built Nineveh, but one thing that we've learned from scripture is that these names, and they have a very important function, and it's extremely important for you to understand doctrine. You have to always understand what these functions mean, because all of these Hebrew names, and they have meanings. So we're going to move forward looking at Genesis chapter 10, verse 22. So the children of Shem, which that's a semicolon there, so this is a whole, that thought is over with. So Elam and Asher and Arphaxad and Lut and Aram. So we know that Asher, then he's one of the children that's coming from that line of Shem, and we also know that Abraham, then he came from the line of Shem too. So this is our people. So this concerns us. And then we have two more precepts to qualify, actually three more. So we're going to look at Sirach chapter 24, verse 33. So I will yet pour out doctrine as prophecy and leave it to all ages forever, which that key, all ages forever. So that includes our ancestors during their time. It includes us that are underneath the sun right now. And if the world has many more years after we all depart, it'll be in our children's, great children's children, when they come and exist in this world during their times. If they're coming through the lines of Shem and they're Abraham, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, this is important bits and pieces of information that they need to learn too, because it's for all ages. Then we have Genesis chapter 17, verse 7, and it reads, "And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee and their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee." So when the Most High was speaking to Abraham in Genesis chapter 17, verse 7, he let him know, and thy seed after thee in their generations. So we're accompanied with Abraham. So this covenant and all of the prophecies and the doctrines that's being poured out, then this is for us too. And we also have Psalms chapter 147, verse 19 and 20. So he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He has not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. And then we have one more, which is Matthew chapter 15, verse 24. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So when we go back up to Jonah chapter 1, verse 1 and 2, now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it. When you look at Nineveh, you have to think about the inhabitants of Nineveh, which we had already seen that Asher is the one that built that, and Asher, then he comes from the line of Shem. So this is our people that Jonah is going to. And since we know that the prophecy, then it's left and it's poured out for all generations, then this exists, and this is applicable to us too, since we're the ones that are underneath the sun right now. So this is crying against us right now, since this is our time underneath the sun. So we need to understand what our wickedness is, what the problem is. So we're going to go back over to the Preceptor, and now that we're finished with this box, and we're going to get ready to pull up the next one. So take this one down, and then we'll go back up to the other one. So this will be the next box where we'll start to look at, and I'm going to take this one down, what's going on with Nineveh. So, woe to that bloody city. It is full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. So we're going to first park at this verse right here and tear this one down. So this is a problem that's going on in Nineveh. Then it's a bloody city, and the reason why is it's full of lies and robbery. So we have to understand what's going on with the lies and the robbery. And first, we're going to be starting with the robbery. So we know that the Creator, Spirit of God, is the person that's responsible for our existence. Then he created our bodies and he created our souls, and they belong to him. Then our body, then it belongs for his spirit, and not only that, our souls that he gave to us, we have to return those back, and it needs to come back the same way that he gave it to us. It has to be holy and undefiled. And when we take these things that the Most High created for us and we just go and defile them with desires of our hearts, and we do the works of our flesh, and we are robbing the Most High of the sacrifice that's due to him. And all you have to do is just look at Romans chapter 12 verse 1. So we're going to look at some more precepts concerning this robbery before we get into the lies. But we know that Nineveh is a bloody city, and it is full of lies and robbery, and the prey departed not. So we're going to go back up and pull up the e-Bible, and we'll look at 1 Corinthians, and we're going to go to chapter 6 verse 19 and 20. So 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. All right. So this is the first one. What? Let me get my mouse, and says, what? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own? For you are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. So when you take your body and your spirit, which belongs to the Creator, and you do your own wills with them, you are robbing the Most High of what belongs to him. And Nineveh, which that includes all of our forefathers that existed underneath the sun long before us, as well as us today, in some shape, form, and fashion, and we've robbed the Most High of the things that belong to him. So we have to get it right. But this is the first precept that's showing us what belongs to the Most High, and we're going to look at later, how we've robbed him. But this is the first one. So picking it back up at verse 20, for you are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. So next precept we're going to look at, which I may have to pull up the next Bible if this one glitches out. We're going to look at Wisdom of Solomon, and we're going to park on over to verse 15. So Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 15, and we're going to look at verse 8. So looking at this verse right here. So in employing his labors lewdly, he maketh a vain god of the same clay. Because this is what we do. Instead of glorifying the Most High, then we go and make vain gods from clay. Even he which a little before was made of earth himself, and within a little while after returneth to the same, out when his life which was lent him shall be demanded. So thing is your life, then it's lent to you, and you have to give it back. And while we're underneath the sun, we make vain gods, and we worship false doctrines, and we are very unmindful about the fact that our lives is lent to us, and when it's all said and done, it's going to be given back. So that's the first verse, Wisdom of Solomon 15 and 8. And employing his labors lewdly, he maketh a vain god of the same clay, even he which a little before was made of earth himself, and within a little while after returneth to the same, out when his life which was lent him shall be demanded. And also in the same chapter, we're going to look at verses 15 and 16. So we're going to scroll down, and now we are right here. So let me highlight this so everybody can see it. So, for they counted all the idols of the heathen to be gods, which neither had the use of eyes to see, nor noses to draw breath, nor ears to hear, nor fingers of hands to handle. And as for their feet, they are slow to go. For man made them, and he that borrowed his own spirit fashioned them. But no man can make a god like unto himself. So Solomon, he's letting us know the same thing, that our spirits, they're not of our own, then they belong to the Creator. And look what we do with these spirits and these bodies that belong to the Most High. So another precept, since we're not done with this, then we're going to go over to 2nd Esdras, and we're going to go to chapter 16, and we're going to go down to verse 61, and let's scroll all the way down. All right, so this is the verse right here. So he made man, so this is the Spirit of God, and put his heart in the midst of the body, and gave him breath, life, and understanding. So all of these precepts that I'm running right now, then it's just different witnesses throughout the Bible that's letting you know that the Most High is our creator, and our spirits and our knowledge and our understanding is what he gave to us. Then it all belongs to him. So he made man and put his heart in the midst of the body and gave him breath, life, and understanding. And then we're getting ready to head on over to Genesis, and we'll look at chapter 1, verse 27, and actually chapter 2, verse 7. So looking at chapter 1, verse 27, then we have this right here, and it reads, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them." Which, this ties into what Elder Johnson has taught us a while back, that we're not self-existent. The Most High, then he created us and our bodies and our souls, and they belong to him. And we'll also look at Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. So we're going to scroll down and look at this some more. "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." So that spirit of life that's inside of our bodies and our outward tabernacles, the creator, then he created these things, and they belong to him. So we're getting ready to move forward, and we're going to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 13. So getting ready to go down and head on over to 6 and 13. So this is the verse right here. So meats for the belly. So this is these doctrines. So the meats is the doctrines. The belly is a part of your body where the doctrines go to. So your belly, then it stores and it learns and it devours and it takes in its doctrine. So meats for the belly, and the bellies for the meats. But God shall destroy both it and them. Now the body is not for fornication, which that's spiritually speaking, but for the Lord, the Creator, and the Lord for the body. And God has both raised up the Lord, and will also raise up by his own power. So know ye not that your bodies are the members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them the members of a harlot? No. So God forbid. What, know ye not that which is joined to a harlot is one body? So this is the problem. And many of us, then we do this to this day, where we're joining our bodies to harlots. And the Creator's telling you right here in 1 Corinthians that the body is for him. It's not for fornication. So we're going to go forth, and we're going to look at Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 7, because thing is we're running on borrowed time here. And when you leave this world and you have to go and stand before the Creator, and actions like these, taking what belongs to him and doing what you want to do underneath the sun, has its consequences. So then shall the dust return to the earth as it was. So that's your fleshly body returning to the ground, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. And when you appear before the Creator, that's where the books is going to be open. And if you've committed all of these spiritual fornications and you didn't get it corrected, you'll have a problem. So let's look at Malachi. So we're going to head on over there, and we're going to go to chapter 1, and we'll look at verse 12 to 14. So we're going to go down, and this is going to be the problem. But you have profaned it. So that's that knowledge and understanding that he gave us. If you're using it unlawfully, then you're just going and committing all sorts of iniquities, doing works of the flesh, and just profaning that knowledge. But you have profaned it, and that you say the table of the Lord is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat, is contemptible. Ye say also, behold, what a weariness is it, and you have snuffed at it, saith the Lord of hosts. And ye brought that which was torn, so our defiled bodies, and the lame, and the sick. Thus ye brought an offering. Should I accept this of your hand, saith the Lord? But cursed be the deceiver which has in his flock a male, and voweth and sacrifice unto the Lord a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful amongst the heathen. That's going to be the problem. Then when you end up returning the dust returns back to the earth as it was, and you stand before the Creator. Then you've taken that knowledge that He gave us to use in order to get ourselves holy and to offer that knowledge back along with our bodies holy and acceptable. You didn't do that. You ended up profaning the knowledge and offering Him a body that was lame, sick, and torn. It's an evil thing to do that. So we're going to look at Deuteronomy, and we'll go up to the law where then it's written out clearly. Then it's in our law. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 1, right here. Thou shalt not sacrifice unto the Lord thy God any bullock, so this is spiritual, or sheep wherein is blemish, or any evil favoredness, for that is an abomination unto the Lord thy God. So that's in His law, and then He repeated Himself when you go to chapter 15 and you look at verse 21. So let's go down to verse 21. And we'll highlight this so everybody can see it. And if there be any blemish therein, as if it be lame, so lame as in it's not walking straight, or blind, so then you can't see the truth, or have any ill blemish, thou shalt not sacrifice it unto the Lord thy God. That's the problem right there. And then, we can clear this up with Paul. So we're going to go to Romans chapter 12, verse 1. So I beseech ye, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. So your body, then you present that holy and acceptable. Then you don't present something that's lame. So then you know what's expected of you, but you're not walking in it in blind, which is then you can't see the truth, or any sort of evil favoredness or anything that's torn. Then you got to present your body holy and acceptable. So that's the problem. So let's go back over to the Preceptor, and we'll look at Nineveh chapter 3 verse 1, and we'll look at that with understanding. So, woe to the bloody city, it is full of lies and robbery, which we know what that robbery is. Which, now that I think about it, in another precept, then it just hit me. So we're going to head on over to Malachi chapter 3, verse 8, and we'll look at how then it's actually supposed to be looked at, not as the Christian pastors look at it. So, will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me, but ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? So in tithes, so the knowledge that the Most High has given us, then you take that knowledge in, you bear forth fruits on your tree, and you give that back. That's the tithes, and the offerings, then that's your body being presented as a living sacrifice, so holy and acceptable. So when you fail to do these things, you're robbing the Most High. So when we go back to Nineveh chapter 3, verse 1, so woe to the bloody city, it is full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. So we have a working understanding of the robbery. So now we're going to pull up the lies. So when we go down to verse 2, we have the noise of a whip, and the noise of the rattling of the wheels, and of the prancing horses, and of the jumping chariots. Which this verse, it's spiritual, but what it's saying is these wheels and these prancing horses and chariots, these are talking about all of these different doctrines and these different interpretations instead of the doctrine that the Spirit of God gave us. So Nineveh, then not only is it running around with people that are, you have this knowledge that the Most High gave you in His body, which belongs to Him, and you're polluting it up, corrupting it. It's also full of all of these different false doctrines, which now we're getting ready to pull up the Preceptor, and we're going to look at some understanding to just look further at these horses. So first one is we'll be heading over to the book of Daniel, chapter 3, verse 4 through 7. So this is going to tie into what our ancestors were going through when they were over there in Babylon. So then the princes, the governors and captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all of the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages. Thou, at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, so the flute, the harp, the sackbut, psaltery, the dulcimer, and all kinds of music. So these are all different sounds of doctrine. You fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. So this is right here clear in Daniel chapter 3, verse 4 through 7, what was going on over there in Nineveh. Got all of these different sounds of doctrine going on, and not only that, you have Nebuchadnezzar setting up mandates for all of the people that were in that area during that time to fall down and worship when all of these different sounds of doctrine are going on. And whoso falleth not down and worship, it shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, the flute, and the harp, and the sackbut, and the psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. So when you look at what's going on during their time and you compare it to what's going on today, then it's pretty much the same thing that we're doing today. Then there's nothing new underneath the sun. So going to scroll down some more and look at the next precept. So this would help us out with the horses. So let me open this back up. Widen that out a bit, and then we'll scroll down, and then we're going to look at Isaiah chapter 31, verse 1 through 3. So woe to them that go down to Egypt for help. So spiritually, if you have also your Paleo-Hebrew keyword dictionaries, then that's the house of disobedience, and that's confusion. It's Babylon. So woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, semicolon. So this is what we're doing. And stay on horses, so these private interpretations, because spiritually that's what a horse is. When you study the characteristics of a horse, then it is if you hadn't put it through much obedience training, then it's a headstrong animal. And what's going to happen is if you try and draw near to a wild horse that hadn't been broken in yet, it's either going to take flight and leave you, or if you try and sneak up on it, then it's going to kick you, and you ain't going to like that. So, I'm going to show some precepts on the horses, and I also have a clip that I want to show. So we're going to start with the clip first, and we'll pull that up, and we'll look at it. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be. So that's what happens when you roll up on a horse. It's going to kick you. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be. And next, we'll also look at Sirach chapter 30, verse 8. So we're going to go on over to Sirach.
Give us a nod before you go.
Close this out. Don't need that no more. So Sirach 30, and we'll go down to 8. So, and a horse not broketh becometh headstrong. So a horse, and it's a headstrong animal, and a child left to himself will be willful. So the thing with horses is if you don't break them down properly, then with obedience training, it's going to be a headstrong animal. So it's going to go its own way, and if you try and approach it, it may kick you. So with these doctrines, when it's saying, woe to them that go down to Egypt for help and stay up on horses and trust in chariots, you're trusting in these private interpretations and your own doctrines, because there are many, and in horsemen, which is, these false teachers, because they are very strong, but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. So that's a problem. We're going down to confusion for help, which when you look at this word right here, help, and I'm going to bold that and underline it, it's very clear in Scripture that the only person that's supposed to be our help is the Spirit of God. But in Nineveh, we go down to Egypt for help, and we stay on horses, so these private interpretations, and we put our trust in chariots. So let's look at Genesis chapter 2, and we'll go to verse 21 and 22. So 2, and we'll scroll down to verse 21 and 22. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, so that's the male and the female, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, so the spirit, and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman. So he made them a spirit and brought her unto the man. So that's our help right there. But instead, then we trust in these private interpretations and these false doctrines, which that was going on back then during their time, and it's still happening today. So next, then we're going to head on over to the book of Psalms, and we're going to go to chapter 121, verse 2, just to drive this point some more with who our help is supposed to be. So go to the book of Psalms, chapter 121, verse 2. So my help cometh from the Lord, so the Spirit of God, which made heaven and earth. And then we have, which we're going to go back over to the book of Deuteronomy, and we're going to head over to chapter 32, verse 9 through 11. So go down to 32, and we'll read from 9, actually down to 12. So we're going to go down even further. So, for the Lord's portion is his people. So Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. So he found him in a desert land. So this is a place without knowledge, without water, and in the waste-howling wilderness. So he led him about. So this is the Spirit of God. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye. As the eagle stirred up her nest, fluttering over her young, spreading about her wings, taketh them, beareth them up on her wings. So the Lord alone did lead him, and there was no strange God with him. So Most High, then that's our help, and that's our only help. And then we're going to look at Psalms chapter 2, verse 12. So going to go back over to the book of Psalms, and we'll go back down to chapter 2, and we'll park at verse 12. So, kiss the Son, which spiritually speaking, that kiss, then it's talking about join. So join yourself to the Son, the servant, lest he be angry and ye perish from the way when his wrath is kindled but a little. So blessed are all they that put their trust in him. So that's the Spirit of God, and not in these private interpretations and also these horsemen. So blessed are all they that put their trust in him. So just keep this part right here in mind when we go back up to the Preceptor and we look at Isaiah chapter 31, verse 1 through 3. So woe to them that go down to Egypt for help. So instead of taking that spirit that the Most High gave us, we're going to Egypt and stay up on horses and trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. That's a problem. And let's read down some more. Yet he also is wise and will bring evil, and will not call back his words, but will arise against the house of the evildoers and against the help of them that work iniquity. So now the Egyptians are men and not God. And their horses, so their doctrines, these interpretations, flesh and not spirit. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fail, so the people that spreading all of these lies and deceits, and he that is hoping shall fall down, and they all shall fail together. So that's very clear, and some people, they believe that the Creator won't do this, but it's also in the law where if you walk contrary to him, he's going to walk contrary to you. So we're going to go back to the law, and we'll head on over to Leviticus, and we're going to park over at chapter 26, and we're going to scroll down, and the verse that we're looking for is verse 14 all the way through 16. But if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, and if ye shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that you will not do all my commandments, but that you break my covenant, I also will do this unto you. So that's the jackpot right there. If you reject the Most High, then he's going to reject you too. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and the burning ague, that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart. And you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. But the key right here is in verse 16. You break his covenant and abhor his judgments and not do his commandments and walk contrary to him and break his covenant, I also will do this unto you. And that's a semicolon there. So this whole thought right here is a whole nother thought. You reject him, he's going to reject you. So when you look back at the book of Isaiah, chapter 31, verse 3, now the Egyptians are men and not God, and their horses, so their interpretations flesh and not spirit. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, so the people that spread these lies, and he that hoping shall fall down, and they all shall fall together. So let's look at this some more with these horses, all of these private interpretations that are running through Nineveh. And before then, I'd look at Jeremiah. I'm going to read Nim chapter 3, verse 1 through 6 again. So, woe to the bloody city. It is full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. So, now then we're looking at Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 14 through 16. Then the Lord said unto me, the prophets prophesied lies in my name. So I sent them not, neither have I commanded them, neither spoke unto them. They prophesy unto you a false vision and divination and a thing of naught in the deceit of their heart. So the Most High is telling us right here that these prophets that are prophesying lies in his name, he sent them not. Therefore, thus saith the Lord concerning the prophets that prophesy in my name, and I sent them not, yet they say, sword, so judgment and famine shall not be in this land. By sword and famine shall those prophets be consumed. So with this verse right here, verse 15, the prophets, when you go back up to Isaiah chapter 31, verse 1 through 3, this is who they are. But he that helpeth shall fall, that is spreading these false doctrines. Now we're going to look at verse 16. And the people to whom they prophesy shall be cast out in the streets of Jerusalem because of the famine and the sword, so the judgment. And they shall have none to bury them. So them, their wives, nor their sons, nor their daughters, for I will pour their wickedness upon them. So when you take verse 16 and you roll back up to Isaiah 31 and 1 through 3, and he that is hoping shall fall down, is us that are still sitting up underneath these doctrines, listening to all of these false divinations, these deceits. Both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is hoping shall fall down. So the Most High, then he's not playing with us, and he's telling us clearly that Nineveh, then it's a bloody city, and it's full of lies and robbery. So we're going to go down and look at 1 John, because this is key right here. So 1 John 4 and 1. So beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits, whether they are of God. Because many false prophets are going out into the world, which that existed way back then, and it's today. And there's a whole lot of us, especially of the circumcision, that are doing preachings and teachings, and if you're not very well at discerning spirits, then you could get caught up with the wrong doctrine, and you'll be fulfilling every bit of Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 16, taking heed to these prophecies. So then the best way that you can discern who's teaching the truth and who's not is everything that's being told to you, you should easily be able to see it in Scripture. Because everything that a true prophet and those teachers are going to be teaching, it's not their words, then it's the words of the Spirit of God. So let's look at this some more. And now we're looking at Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 28, and Proverbs 5 and 3. So I have these two precepts here to show a contrast between the false prophets and the ones that are speaking the truth of the Most High. So starting with Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 28. So the prophet that has a dream, so these are the ones that are speaking the deceits of their heart, let him tell a dream. So that's what those false prophets are going to do. And then we have a semicolon there. So this is a whole nother thought right here. And he that has my word, let him speak my word faithfully. That's the difference right there. So the true teachers of the Most High is going to be teaching this word faithfully. So let's pull up the book of Deuteronomy. So pulling back up the e-Bible, and we're going to go to chapter 18, and we're going to park right at verse 18. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. That's how you know that you're dealing with a true teacher and not a false one. The ones that's telling the truth are going to be teaching nothing but what the Spirit of God commanded him. All of the false ones, then, are going to be teaching a deceit of their own heart. And just to back that up, then it's right here in Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 14, where it says, the prophets prophesy lies in my name. I sent them not, neither have I commanded them, neither spoke unto them. They prophesy unto you a false vision and divination, and a thing of naught, in the deceit of their heart. So that's the difference. So going back to Jeremiah 23 and 28, we're going to pick up here. What is the chaff to the wheat, saith the Lord? So this is through an illustration, the contrast between the two. So these false divinations and deceits, they're chaff, and the truth of the Most High is that wheat. And, to look at this some more, I put forth another contrast. So this is the manners of the contrast between the falsities and the truth. So looking at Proverbs 5 and 3, for the lips of a strange woman, so this is the spirit of Satan, drop as an honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. So you can see this, and this is very apparent with these teachers that are out here that teach on Sunday and they teach on the corners. All of their teachings, and it's that smooth stuff, and it sounds good to the ears, then it's something that if you're void of understanding and you don't know any better, the doctrines, they'll tickle your ears, and it'll give you that smooth feeling as you're listening to it, and you'll have that smooth feeling coming up out of there. But that's of the spirit of Satan. But let's look at the Most High, what he has to say about his word. So Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 29, is not my word like a fire, saith the Lord, and like a hammer that breaketh the rock in pieces. So the Most High, then his word, then it's not smooth, then it's tough, then it's hard, then it'll break rocks in pieces. And we're hard-headed, stiff-necked people, so then it's no surprise that his word, then it's going to come in that manner. So many of us, then we complain, we may criticize then the other elders, the other deacons, about the manner of the messages that they're giving out. But the Most High is telling you in Jeremiah 23 and 29, his word is like a fire, and it's like a hammer that's going to break the rock in pieces. So you don't take that up against the elders or the deacons that are preaching those hard teachings, and you take that up with the Spirit of God if you're bold enough to do that. So this is the problem with Nineveh, with Nineveh chapter 3, verse 1. It's full of lies and it's full of robbery, which you can see this today. Then we're not too much different than the way Nineveh was during the times that's recorded in Scripture. Then we have plenty of false doctrines that are still rolling around throughout all of our places of captivity, and we're robbing the Most High continuously day to day when you decide to neglect giving him his sacrifice and tithing that increase of the knowledge that you're learning. It's full of lies and it's full of robbery. So before then I move forward, and I just want to look at the comment section, and I just want, and if anybody is near a keyboard, to write in, do they understand what's going on with the teaching? Like, are you confused, or do you understand what's going on? So then I'm just looking at the chat section. I just want to see what people have to say. Or do they understand what's going on, or are they confused? That's what I'm waiting on right now. All right, so starting to roll through, see what people have to say. All right, so it says, I understand. So yes, Brother Micah, yes, I understand. Thank you. Understand. Okay, sweet. All right, so we're getting ready to move forward. So we're at Nineveh chapter 3, verse 1, and we looked at 1 and we looked at 2 with these horses being all of these private interpretations. So moving forward to verse 3. So the horseman lifted up both the bright sword and the glittering spear, which this is all spiritual, and there is a multitude of slain and a great number of carcasses. So these slain, which I'm a bold list and underline it, and a great number of carcasses is us. then if you're still dealing with all of these falsities and you're still sitting up under these false doctrines, spiritually you're slain and you're a part of this great number of carcasses, and there's none in of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpses. So these horsemen with all of these false doctrines, they're taking a whole lot of us out. And if you're sitting up underneath this and you believe these falsities, which none of them can be backed up with scripture, you're slain. Then this is you right here. And there's a multitude of slain. You can put yourself right there. And if you know anybody that's sitting up underneath these false doctrines, you can throw them in there too. So this is a huge problem. Because of the multitude, which we're picking up at verse 4, because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress, so this well-favored harlot is talking about the strange woman, the spirit of Satan, the mistress of the witchcrafts that selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcrafts. So the spirit of Satan, then it's working in these false pastors that are committed unto her. And through these false pastors, then the spirit of Satan is getting us with all of these false doctrines. So a whole lot of us is going to get caught up. And it's Most High, then he's telling us right there once again in verse 1, woe to the bloody city. It is full of lies and robbery. So if it's one thing, if it's not one thing, it's the other. Then if it's not us robbing the Most High of what belongs to him, then it's all of the abundance of lies and all of the false doctrines that study causing our people to err. So we're going to focus more on this well-favored harlot right here in verse 4 where my mouse is at, because this is also an important part of what's going on with Nineveh chapter 3, verse 1 through 6. So going on over here, so my mouse is on the left side of the Preceptor now, so I'm in this box that's to the far left. So first verse that we're going to look at is Genesis chapter 49, verse 20. So out of Asher, his bread shall be fat. So Asher, his bread, this is talking about the knowledge. His bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. Which this dainties, when you look at Proverbs chapter 3, 23 and 3, it's telling you what dainties is, and it's deceitful knowledge. Be not desirous of his dainties, for they are deceitful meat, so deceitful bread. And the reason why these two verses, why I started off with Genesis 49 and 20 and Proverbs 23 and 3, is because it's getting ready to explain the importance of this well-favored harlot in Nineveh chapter 3, verse 4, which I'm going to open this back up, put this back here. Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts that selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcrafts. So all of this deceitful knowledge, these dainties over here in Genesis 49 and 20, the question is where did all of this stuff come from? And the answer is from that harlot. It's the same way back in Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, and it's the same way with today. When you have our people going into these churches and they're going to all of these wells where there's bitter water and they're getting this deceitful knowledge. So looking at Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, and when the woman, so this is our souls, saw the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof. So we took this knowledge from this serpent that was in the garden and did eat. So we learned, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. So then we took this deceitful knowledge and we learned it. And not only that, then it's passed through all of our generations. So when you look at 2 Ezra chapter 3, verse 7 and 8, it reads, so, and unto him thou gavest commandment to love thy way. So this is Adam, so this is a male and a female, which he transgressed. So they forgot. And before you go blaming and pointing a finger at them, we've all done it too, where we forgot, and we're today learning, trying to remember so that we can get it right. So, and unto him thou gavest commandment to love thy way, which he transgressed, and immediately thou appointest death in him and in his generations, of whom came nations, tribes, people, and kindreds out of number. And every people walked after their own will, and did wonderful things before thee, and despised thy commandments. So that's what we did with that deceitful knowledge that we received from that serpent. then we ended up transgressing what the Most High commanded us, and we're walking after our own will today. And not only that, many of us are still sitting up underneath this harlot, which that's a huge problem. So let's go down some more, and we're going to look at Revelations chapter 17, verse 1 through 6. So we're still learning about this harlot. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, so come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. So before we go down to verse 2, we've got some breaking down to do. So this great whore, this is talking about the spirit of Satan, the strange woman that we've been breaking down so far. And that's her that sitteth upon the many waters. This is talking about people, which then I'm going to show that according to Precept. So we're going to stop right here, and we'll go back to the e-Bible, and we're getting ready to go to Revelations chapter 17, verse 15. So Revelation 17, 15 right here. This is the one. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are people and multitudes and nations and tongues. So a lot of us, and we're caught up in these lies, just like what Nineveh 3:1 is saying. So woe to that bloody city. It is full of lies and robbery. That's the problem with Nineveh. So going back over here to the left side, where we left at Revelations chapter 17, verse 1, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. So that's ruling over a whole lot of us right now, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, so that spiritual, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication, which that's that knowledge, which if you want to know what that wine of fornication is, it's the same thing that we took from that serpent that was in the garden. That serpent's fruit, so the works of the flesh. And if you want to see more of that, you just go over to Galatians chapter 15, verse 19 to 21. Whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit unto the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast, so full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, which that's spiritual. Then that gold and those precious stones and pearls, that's talking about us. Having a golden cup in her hand, which that's us too, in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, so Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So when you go to Nineveh chapter 3, verse 4, that's the harlot right here in Revelations, and it's the same person that it's talking about. So going down some more, we're going to go down even more. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration, because as it was back then, in the same way that it is today, a whole lot of us are still caught up with this strange woman. And when it's saying, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, then these are these people that thought that they had the right one, but they didn't. So I'm going to show you what the problem is. So hopefully this one show it. So we're going to go over to the Wisdom of Solomon, and it's one that Elder shows a lot. So we just going to show it again. So Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14, and we'll look at verse 15 and 16. For a father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he has made an image of his child soon taken away, now honored him as a god, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. Thus in process of time, an ungodly custom grown strong was kept as a law, and graven images were worshipped by the commandments of kings. So that's what these martyrs in Revelations chapter 17, verse 6, what it's talking about. You know, they're worshiping the wrong one. Then they believe that Jesus, They believe in that man demigod, which that's not the truth. And we know that salvation, and it was the spirit that rested in that man, but they're worshiping the man outwardly. So they have it all wrong, and they're worshiping that image that's in the churches. Then that's a device. And now that I think about it, we're going to go back to the Wisdom of Solomon, and there's another precept that I want to show. So we're going to go back to the Wisdom of Solomon, and where is it? Going to go to verse 20. And so the multitude, allured by the grace of the work, took him now for a god, which was little before was but honored. And this was the occasion, so to deceive the world. For men serving either calamity or tyranny did ascribe unto stones and to stocks the incommunicable name. So they believe that they have the right one, but they're joining themselves into the ancient and honorable. And that's the problem. So when we go down even further, not only are we joining ourselves to the wrong one underneath this strange woman, we've also built all of these eminent places, and we're also going in them. So we have Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 24 through 25. So that thou hast also built unto thee an eminent place, and hast made thee an high place in every street. Thou hast built thy high place at every head of the way, and hast made thy beauty. So this beauty is talking about the knowledge that the Most High gave us to be abhorred, which I had showed that in Malachi, where the table of the Lord, we've profaned it and we've made it abominable. Thou hast built thee a high place at every head of the way, and hast made thy beauty to be abhorred, and hast opened thy feet to every one that passes by, and multiplied thy whoredoms. So when you go in these churches and you're dealing with the ancient and honorable, then that's the spirit that's in there. Creator, and he's not there. So we're going to go down even more, and we're going to prove the point. So next precept we have is Proverbs chapter 7, verse 7 through 12. And behold, among the simple ones, I discern among the youths a young man void of understanding. So passing through the streets near her corner, so that's the ancient and honorable's corner. And he went the way to her house in the twilight, and in the evening, and in the black and dark night. And behold, there met him a woman. So this is a spirit, with the attire of a harlot and subtle of heart. So she is loud and stubborn, and her feet abided not in her house. Now is she without, now in the streets, and lieth in wait at every corner. So when you go on those churches, Solomon, he's letting us know that's the spirit that's waiting in the corner and in the streets. And don't ever think that the Most High, then he's the one that's in those churches. Then you're dealing with the wrong one. So Most High, then he even gives us some precepts on this. So we have Amos chapter 5, verse 21. So I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. So he's not there. So that woman that's meeting you in the corners and in the streets, back in Proverbs chapter 7, verse 10, that woman, then that's the ancient and honorable, that spirit of Satan, that strange woman. And that's the one that's meeting you in there. And when you go in her house, you're committing whoredoms. And you're back to Nim chapter 3, verse 3. You're counted as a slain. And you're a part of this great number of carcasses, because spiritually, then you're still dead. So let's go down back to the left box, and we'll go down to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 15 and 16. So the ancient and honorable, he is the head. So he's the one that you're dealing with when you go in those false churches. And the prophet that teaches lies, he is the tail. For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed. And when you think about Isaiah 9 and 15 and 16, I just showed y'all Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 14 through 16. So what we're getting ready to do is we'll end up taking this box down for a minute. So we're just going to take this one down, and we'll pull back up the other one. So and pull this one down. And where's the other box? Actually, wow, it was here the whole time. So Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 16. So let's look at it again. Thus saith the Lord unto me, so the prophets prophesy lies in my name. So I sent them not, neither have I commanded them, neither spoke unto them. So they prophesy unto you a false vision and divination, and a thing of naught in the deceit of their heart. So therefore thus saith the Lord concerning the prophets that prophesy in my name. And I sent them not. Ye that yet they say, sword and famine shall not be in the land. By sword and famine shall those prophets be consumed. And the people to whom they prophesy shall be cast out in the streets of Jerusalem because of the famine and the sword, and they shall have none to bury them, their wives, nor their sons, nor their daughters, for I will pour their wickedness upon them. So this precept, this Jeremiah 14, verse 14 and 16, it ties into what's going on with Isaiah 9 and 16. For the leaders of this people cause them to err, which the lies and deceits, and they that are led of them are destroyed. So this also goes back to that Nineveh chapter 1, verse 6. It is full of lies, which is the lies through these false prophets that the ancient anomaly is doing unto our people, and robbery, which we had already seen this with 2nd Ezra chapter 3, verse 8. And every people walked after their own will, so we're puffed up and we're proud, and did wonderful things before thee, and despised thy commandments. So, getting ready to go back and read some more of Nineveh. So we're going to pick up from verse 4 and go down to 5. So, behold, remember, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will show the nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame. And I will cast abominable filth upon thee, and make thee vow, and will set thee as a gazing stock. So this gazing stock, then it's talking about a reproach because of what we're doing over here in Nineveh, which is spiritually, we're in it today. When you look at all of our people that are still walking in the shadow of Egypt and not with the Spirit of God. So going back over to this right box, then we have another precept, which we're going to scroll all the way down, and we're going to look at Isaiah chapter 30, verse 1 and 2. So woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, which then we already seen in Proverbs, then who's standing at the corner with all of these in the streets? Then it's the spirit of Satan, the ancient and honorable, that walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth. So we're asking with these false prophets, all of these false interpretations, these false doctrines, that walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt, which that goes back to the Psalms, where we're supposed to be joining ourselves to the Son. We're putting our trust in him, not in the shadow of Egypt. And then we have Hosea chapter 14, verse 3. Asher shall not save us. So the self-willed, being self-willed. We will not ride upon horses. So these false doctrines, these false interpretations. Neither will we say any more to the work of our hands, ye are gods, for in thee the fatherless findeth mercy. So we have to turn away from the works of our hands and get up off of these horses. So going back to the middle box, then we are going to look at Nineveh chapter 3, verse 9 and 10. So Ethiopia, which that's talking about just the stream of Cush, so knowledge of Cush in Egypt, which is that Babylon and confusion, were her strength. So this is what Nineveh is covered in, and it was infinite. So Put, which this is one of the sons of Ham, and Lubim were thy helpers, yet was she carried away. She went into captivity, and her young children also were dashed in pieces. So this is spiritual. What it's talking about dashed in pieces is our knowledge, and we're being overthrown with these false doctrines being slain at the top of all the streets, and they cast decisions for her honorable men, and all her great men were bound in chains, so chains of confusion. That's what's going on in Nineveh, which we're going to look on even more with Revelation chapter 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So spiritually, then it's Nineveh, then you can also look at it as Sodom and Egypt. Then that's where a lot of our dead bodies today is still laying slain because of the false doctrines that are going on, and also the robberies. And then we have Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 12. So woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, so with life, and established a city by iniquity. This is the issue that the Spirit of God has with Nineveh, and that's why Jonah was being sent to go and talk to them, to get the acts right before the overthrow that was going to happen. And, just with Nineveh and with Jonah during his time, it's also, then it concerns us today as well. We have to get ourselves right. So we're getting ready to move on even further with the teaching. So we're going to pull down these boxes right here and pull up the next set. Take these down and I'm going to pull up the other ones. So, all right. So these is the next sets. So we're going to first start with the box in the middle. So this is concerning the next part of this precept teardown right here. So we just looked at Nineveh and we looked at the great city. So the next part that we're getting ready to cover, it's going to be to cry against it. So we're going to cover that, and then we'll finish with for their wickedness is come up before me. So let's go back over to the Preceptor and we'll look at the cry against it. So still in the book of Nimp. So chapter 1, verse 9 and 10. What do you imagine against the Lord? So the Spirit of God. So he will make an utter end. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. So the Spirit of God, then he's not playing with us no more. So, the time for chastening, then it's over with now. For while they be folded together as thorns, and while they are drunken as drunkards, they shall be devoured as stubble, so fully dry. And then, we have a Nimp chapter 1, verse 12 and 15. So thus saith the Lord. So though they be quiet, so they think they have peace right now, and likewise many, yet thus shall they be cut down when he shall pass through. So though I have afflicted thee, I will afflict thee no more. For now will I break his yoke from off thee, and will burst thy bonds in asunder. And the Lord has given a commandment concerning thee, that no more of thy name be sown. So out of the house of thy gods will I cut out off the graven image and the molten image, and I will make thy name grave, for thou art foul. So Creator, then he's not playing with us no more. Then we're filthy, and he's letting us know that he's not going to afflict us no more. Then he's going to break our yoke from off thee and burst our bonds asunder. So behold, upon the mountains the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publish peace. So, O Judah, so keep thy solemn feasts and perform thy vows, for the wicked shall no more pass through thee. So he is utterly cut off. So that's one of our warnings right there. So though Nineveh, then it seems quiet and peaceful now, there's going to be a time where reckoning is going to be repaid to us. So we're going to go down and look at Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 15, which is also showing us how proud we are. So this is the rejoicing city that dwell carelessly. So right now, then we're just doing our own thing, thinking that we got it made in the shade, no sort of care in the world. That saith in her heart, so I am. So we think that we're our own gods. And there's none beside me. How she become a desolation, a place for beasts to lie down in. So everyone that passeth by her shall hiss and wag his hand. And this pride that we have, then it's coming from that ancient and honorable that's working through these false pastors, and that's itching our ears with these false doctrines and taking hold of us. So we have Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13 and 14. For thou sayest in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. So I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. So I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Which, if you have your Bibles with you, all you have to do is just go back to Genesis chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, where the serpent was beguiling them, letting them know, hey, this false doctrine, which the fruit that he had, when your eyes will be open, you'll be as gods, knowing good and evil. And then we take this knowledge and we get fat of it, and then we believe that we're our own gods and we can make our own laws and make our own graven images and do what we want to do. That's the problem. So let's look at the box over here to the right, and now we're looking at 2nd Esdras chapter 2, verse 8 and 9. So woe be unto thee, so Asher, so self-willed, which this is talking about us. Thou that hidest the unrighteousness in thee, O thou wicked people, remember what I did unto Sodom and Gomorrah, whose lands lieth in clouds of pitch and heaps of ashes. So even so also will I do unto them that hear me not, saith the Almighty Lord. So, one of the beautiful things about the Bible is it has all sort of precedents. So we have examples of things that were recorded in the Bible for us to pause and just meditate on and think about. And there's also examples in the Bible that are left there for us to learn from, to just take to heart, to meditate on. And one of them is the Sodom and Gomorrah. And when you look at the story of what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah, then it's not too much different than what was going on with Jonah. So you have a whole lot of wicked people in one area, and then you have a messenger that's coming from the Spirit of God to correct those folks. But thing with Sodom and Gomorrah is that they didn't get their acts right. And then with Jonah going on in the book of Jonah, people that Jonah spoke to in Nineveh, then they repented. So let's now look at Sodom and Gomorrah. So we have Genesis chapter 13, verse 13. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. So then Sodom, then this is also Sodom and Gomorrah, then it's a great city too. Then it's just like Nineveh, where there's a lot of lies and a lot of robbery going on. And the Spirit of God, then he's watching all of this, and then he sends this warning. So now we're going to look at Genesis 18 and 20 through 22. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, so I will go down now. So this is for visitation. So bold that and underline it, and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence, and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. So the key to take away from this is when you go back and focus on verse 22, the messengers, they went first. Then they're the people that went first to deal with the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah. So they went first, and then what's getting ready to come up behind that messenger, then it's coming second. And the thing that we need to take into heart is that we have to put ourselves in a situation. We're getting all of the heeds and the warnings now, and it's best to be corrected from the messenger than to deal with what's getting ready to come up behind that, because you don't want what's coming up behind it. If you want to look at that, just read further in Genesis chapter 19, and you'll see what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah. So let's look at Jude chapter 1, verse 7. So even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, or these strange doctrines, the strange knowledge, are set forth an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. And this is what we need to look at. Sodom and Gomorrah, then it was a great city just like Nineveh, but the difference with this example right here with Sodom and Gomorrah and with Nineveh is that the inhabitants of Nineveh, they repented. And when you look at the last chapter of Jonah, Most High, then he repented of what he thought to do to the inhabitants of Nineveh. Now, the people in Sodom and Gomorrah, you seen what they wanted to do with the messengers that were given to to them to talk to them. They wanted to get to know them. And right afterwards, that whole city, then it was wiped out except for Lot and his household. And that's an example. And, I'm getting ready to show some precepts where this ties into us today. So we're going to first look at Tobit, chapter 14, verse 8. And then we'll look at Luke 11 and 30 and Matthew 16 and 4. So Tobit, let's go to Tobit. Hopefully this will show. If not, then I have, all right, so Tobit 14 and 8. Let me scroll down. All right. And now, my son. So this is how this ties in and applies with us. Depart out of Nineveh, because that those things which the prophet Jonah spoke shall surely come to pass. Where if you don't get yourself together, then Nineveh is going to be overthrown. And then we'll look at Luke chapter 11, verse 30. So we're going to go to 11 and scroll down to verse 30. For as Jonas was a sign unto the Ninevites, so shall also the Son of Man be to this generation. So just as Jonas and he was sent over there to correct the people of Nineveh, we have the word that's sitting in front of us today, which is supposed to be correcting us. And, it's imperative to us, if we care about where our destinations are going to be after this world is over with, to take heed to the sign right now and not wait for the judgment that's going to come behind it, because that judgment is surely getting ready to come. All you have to do is just go back and look at that Tobit 14 and 8 that I just showed. And then we have Matthew 16, verse 4, I believe. So Matthew 16 and verse 4. So a wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas. And he left them and departed. So we got to depart out of Nineveh, because spiritually, when you look at it, it's just a place that's full of lies and robberies. And when you look around you today, we're full of lies and robberies as well. So with that being said, that wraps up the teaching that I had on Nineveh, that great city. And yeah, I'm not about to forget this time. So before then I head on out, then there was a few other announcements that I wanted to make. So next week, then we're going to go over that brass and iron. So show you what I'm talking about. So that's going to be the next Preceptor Academy. So we'll be taking care of this right here. So that's going to be the next Preceptor Academy. And I also, before then I head on out, then I want to give y'all the next homework assignment for the week after. So we're going to be doing Deuteronomy chapter 22, and we're going to look at verse 9. And this is what I want y'all to tear down. It's Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 9. So, thou shalt not sow thy vineyard with diverse seeds, lest the fruit of thy seed which thou hast sown in the fruit of thy vineyard be defiled. So, if you don't have the preceptor, then you could just, send me an email or a Word document. But, I want to know, what is this verse talking about? And the best way to understand this is just, to tear this down in bits and pieces. So take your time and understand what the vineyard is. You need to understand what the seed is. And, understand what the fruit is, which for this precept right here, then I will give you one hint. So with the seeds, just meditate on Luke 8 and 11. Which Luke 8 and 11, then it's saying, now the parable is this. The seed is the word of God. So we know that Spirit of God, then he has the seed. So with that being said, what are those diverse seeds talking about, and what is the vineyard talking about? So that's going to be the homework assignment. It's going to be Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 9. So I'm going to pull it up one more time and let y'all look at that. So thou shalt not sow thy vineyard with diverse seeds, lest the fruit of thy seed which thou hast sown in the fruit of thy vineyard be defiled. So with that being said, before I head on out, then I just want to look at the comment section, and I'm just going to ask this question. So concerning Jonah chapter 1, verse 1 and 2, did everybody understand the precepts that I'd shown? Did you understand my thinking pattern? Did I confuse anybody? Is anybody lost? And that's what I want to know. And I'm just going to wait a sec, see what everybody has to say. All right, so got the yeses rolling on through. All right, so that being said, if you have to go back and look at it again, just feel free to do so. Then at the live stream, it's going to stay there. But thanks for hanging on in, and I don't want to stay before you long. This is Deacon Micah, and until next time, peace.